The game of the year for 2025, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, just got a huge gameplay update, and I want to share some additional delicious morsels of information that we got. I did a different video diving deep into how the combat works, the characters, the art inspiration, the developers, everything, every single thing there was to know about the game, and I will be building off of that video. So you have not watched that video, I highly recommend watching that video first. But in case you've never seen the trailer for Expedition 33, or you're just like, no, I'm not going to go watch the other video, basically this game is a turn-based RPG that has really high level graphics. And basically the story is, once a year, a paintress wakes up and paints upon her monolith, paints her cursed number, and everybody of that age turns to smoke and fades away. Year by year, that number ticks down, and more of the people of the town of Lumiere are erased. And tomorrow she wakes and will paint the number 33. And tomorrow you depart on your final mission to destroy the paintress so she can never paint death again. And it's a really unique storyline, and just everything about this game has just been extremely appealing. So if you've never heard of it, there's the brief synopsis. Today we just had a massive update to Expedition 33, revealing a ton of new information about the battle, some story bits, and some of Ben Starr's voice acting, which, by the way, it's really good to hear him in a role that doesn't just sound like Clive again, because there was another game announced with him in it and it just sounded like Clive all over again. So this is really going to show his range. Anyway, let's just jump into it. I'm Solace, this is Solace and Dread. We produce analytical content as well as nuanced discussions primarily on video games. If you like that kind of stuff, consider subscribing and hit the like button to let YouTube know it too. So first, we're going to cover some of the statements given to us by the official Clair Obscur 33 Twitter account, and then I'm going to break down individual updates from the trailer. So like you'll be able to see, you know, little gameplay mechanic changes. They actually changed a lot between the initial trailer and what they are showing us now, and I'm going to go over every individual detail. Chapters are below. The update that we got was gameplay footage from like an early section of the game, and the Expedition 33 Twitter account wrote that it's a glimpse into the early section of the game known as the Flying Waters. Here, Gustav and Loon are searching for Mael, which is another member of the expedition, and they must navigate the area to uncover clues to find her whereabouts. Now, I'll just go ahead and say that this is a kind of light confirmation of my theory that they crashed on their maiden voyage out of the town of Lumiere. Maybe. We'll see. But it feels pretty strong at this point. They continue on to say in a Twitter post that as you travel, you'll discover what happened to the previous expeditioners, such as seeing how like Expedition 68 met their end. So there's going to be a lot of breaking open the lore as you travel throughout the game. They continue on to say that you can change the party member at any time when you traverse the world. So, you know, admittedly, I was kind of concerned about that just a little bit. I was worried that it was going to be a lot like Final Fantasy 13 when I kept seeing the different party members. And, you know, I'm not throwing any shade at Final Fantasy 13 in this video, but I thought it was going to be a thing where they're having you constantly swap back and forth between the different parties. My fears are a little bit assuaged in that, because it matters for combat, because the character you control will typically go first, from what I understand. They also signified that you can customize their appearance, which I really didn't expect. I thought they were going to be wearing the same outfits the whole time. So I really kind of hope that we get some wacky stuff and it's not all like streamlined uniform crap. Like, this is a game that's inspired by the Belle Epoque period of France. So like, it would be really cool if we saw some fashion from that time and not just uniforms. One of the other things they mentioned in their posts on Twitter is that there was a grappling hook, which assuages my fears again about this being a little more Final Fantasy X-esque with its exploration. You know, it was also quelled already in another interview where they had mentioned that exploration was going to be a big thing, but still, you know, seeing it in person and seeing a grappling hook, that really kind of made me feel a little bit better that it's gonna have a little bit of variety in how you get around and it's not just walking in a straight hallway. Speaking of, in the exploration, they mentioned that there is puzzles out in the world called paint cages, and there's items there associated with them called pictos, and those give you new abilities, which are similar to like how traditional RPGs give like stat bonuses. And they also have like unique passive skills called Lumina, and having the Picto equipped allows you to learn the Lumina permanently. I love this too. I immediately thought of FF7 Rebirth or Final Fantasy IX, where you could have, you had to use certain gear to learn a skill permanently before you moved on. They also dive into the combat, which we'll be diving into pretty deeply later on in the video, but they mention the reactive turn-based combat, which is, you have to input commands when you attack and defend. Not everybody's a big fan of this, but it's very reminiscent of like Lost Odyssey or Legend of Dragoon. But I love these systems, and I liked my experience in those games. And this is embedded in some of the best RPGs out there, like Mario RPG and the Mario and Luigi games, and I think that the best of them have something like this in it when it comes to turn-based. They go on to mention how action points work, and while you do get 1 point per turn, you can get them other ways too, depending on your build. I called this. I didn't just call it, I saw it, I analyzed it, and I told everybody. But I wish they'd said whether or not the number of action points that you get carries into new battles, but we'll find that out sooner or later. They also said that some of the multi-hit skills allow you to chain an attack combo together, unless you fail your inputs, and it may even backfire and cause damage to you if you fail your input. I think the Mario and Luigi games might have had something like that too, but I can't remember to be sure. They continue on by saying that when the enemy attacks, you'll need to time your inputs to minimize damage, and the timing window varies. Dodging is easier, but it doesn't give you any rewards. Parrying has a tighter window, and it can trigger a counterattack if you parry all the attacks from the enemy. This answers the questions I had from the first video, where you were able to parry and dodge and counter, but I was not able to ascertain which you do in certain situations. But apparently the choice is yours. High risk, high reward. You can also apparently do a no damage run of the entire game if you were determined enough. I'll never be that guy, ever. I do not possess the skill set, but somebody out there is going to do it. They also talked about some boss fights, saying that they have special mechanics. They actually mentioned one from the gameplay trailer, as he's surrounded by flowers, and then in the encounter, these flowers can buff the boss, and they can, make him quickly kill your party. So you have to use the free aim system to fire at these flowers to put them out, to close the buds. We talked about the free aim mechanic in the last video, but basically you can like aim around the screen and shoot at stuff, and it costs action points. But it's just a really cool mechanic that they added to, and there's going to be a ton of stuff like that in boss fights. So it's very integral to boss battles, and I think that a lot of the fights are going to be puzzles. So let's dive deeper into the trailer and call out all of the delicious details of combat and gameplay. So just in starting the fight, it's a little less modernized, where there's a battle start screen like the RPGs of old, and you don't just fight on the map. I'm not exactly in love with this. I actually like that newer games have not had an animation and a loading screen before taking you into combat. I'm sure they have their reasons. I just wish that it would load in a little bit faster. I hope this time shortens. There's also a huge first strike indicator, and I'm guessing that it's always going to be your main character that gets to go first in these situations, whoever you're controlling, but it's not really clear if first strike adds any bonus of any kind. I guess we'll find that out. They also show off Gustav's unique gimmick here. Apparently you can charge Gustav's arm by doing damage. Basically, Gustav just does a bunch of attacks and it builds up charges, and then he does overcharge and does a bunch of damage. And every character kind of has a gimmick, and I like that his is kind of simple. But one thing that they did add is overcharge is apparently now it has a chance to break an enemy. And I don't really know what break means, but if I had to guess, maybe it's severely lowering their defense. But in the original build of the game that they showed off, it did not have the ability to break, so it was not listed in the tooltip next to the ability. So they added that it has a chance to break since the first time that they showed this off in the trailers. Also, his arm looks a little bit skinny, and there's so much focus on his arm, and Gustav is an engineer, so it's quite possible that he lost his arm at some point and actually had to build it himself. I bet I'm right on this. Speaking of UI changes, also the menu actually has like a lot of little icons showing you like the properties of attacks now. I approve of this wholeheartedly. It makes it easier to see what the move does at a glance rather than having to read a bunch of text. Marking shot. Before we didn't really know what the mark debuff does. Now we have some context clues as to what the mark debuff does. Mark seems to augment other characters' abilities or other abilities. If a bad guy is marked, all of a sudden other abilities can now apply additional debuffs or do additional damage. It's probably a good idea to start off fights with single targets with a mark. And then during Loon's turn, she has quite a bit to unpack here. So here is where we got the context clue for Mark, but the spell Immolation, her fire spell, has the ability to apply 2 more instances of her debuff of burn. And then we see that her elemental stains are consumed by casting spells for additional damage. Just like Gustav, whenever she attacks, she builds up stains depending on the spell that she uses. And that will then be consumed later if they use a specific spell, and it'll do more damage. We also see her healing spell and her earth damage spell that hits all targets, as well as the ice and thunder spells on the second row. Now, in this shot, she actually cast the earth spell and she times it perfectly. She used the earth spell and got a stain. Now, it didn't show it on the right away, but if you look at the floating palette that she has next to her, a green stain appeared on, as well as a leaf icon on the enemy. This will be helpful to know what stain she has active even when it's not her turn, seeing it at a glance. So it's become clear now during the enemy's turn that they will attack any ally and do not isolate to one character. So the player decides what they want to do. Loon dodged the first attack, and then Gustav parried the second attack, which gave him his action point, and then he performed a counter, and that finished the fight. Now there's the victory screen, which gave some really juicy deets. The loot is some kind of currency to use, and they actually mention a village during the trailer, so maybe there's towns and stuff. That would be nice. Again, it's very not Final Fantasy 13 because they're mentioning a village up ahead. The screen also displays stats from the fight down at the bottom. It also shows the kind of Lumina that they have equipped. At least I'm assuming that that's the Lumina. And one thing that is very, very worth noting is that taking no damage gave a whopping 20% XP bonus. That is crazy good. There's definitely rewards for finishing the fight without taking any damage. And then later in the trailer, cutting to after they link back up with Mael, they show that enemies have a sight detection, as walking up behind this particular enemy didn't alert them. And they were able to grapple across the gap without alerting the enemy, where they were able to pick up the Picto here. And it has an item in it called Versatile, which, shows a Picto in there that has a cool Lumina of increasing the base attack damage after a free aim hit by 50%. And that has a level, by the way. So I think that the gear that you acquire levels up to, and I assume that just boosts the stat bonuses that you get from them. So then we get to a boss fight, and we see an attack that's hitting all of the characters at once. And one input seems to be making the entire party parry or dodge. So during Gustav's turn, we see that he already has a number of charges on his arm. So we do see that the arm charges carry from battle to battle. And then we finally get to see the other row of abilities. There's Powerful, which is an attack buff ability. I was right about that. And then there's From Fire, being physical damage that also heals you if the attack applies a debuff, and it has a chance to apply a burn debuff. And then speaking of UI changes from earlier, during the target select section, they show details about the move that you want to use up in the top left. This was not present in the earlier build of the game from the first trailer. So Gustav uses From Fire, and we do see the charges in Gustav's arm go up on each attack. We finally get to see Mael's battle menu. She's honestly been my favorite character already, just from what I've read about her and what I've seen of her in combat. But we see that she's currently stanceless, and we covered the fact that she has different stances in battle in the last video, but we didn't get to see a whole lot of it. But we see that each ability has a different stance indicator, and the move that she chooses is Offensive Switch, which changes her stance, which likely changes her abilities and specific factors about them. She's even in an offensive stance with her rapier now, as you can see on the side. During Lune's turn, we see a few more abilities shown and some debuff info. And honestly, I feel like Lune is going to be a broken, if not heavily essential character to successful combat, because having all of those elemental stains and having all those spells with different enemy weaknesses is going to be just such a big advantage. One huge thing that I noticed is that enemies hitting you takes an action point away from you. I did not expect that. So parrying and dodging is going to be super important beyond just keeping your HP up. And then as the enemy attacks, you can see when the boss is going to do a heavy attack, probably just indicates a big hit that would otherwise kill you or probably can't be parried. I do wonder specifically about crushing attacks. We then see in Mael's turn that she has at least 4 stance types. There's obviously stanceless, one is offensive, one is defensive, and then the purple one is virtuose. And I don't even know what that means. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but we don't really have a lot of details as to what they do. But she uses Fleuret Fury, which looks needlessly awesome, but I don't know if I'm saying that right. There's a lot of French words. I have a tenuous grasp on the English language. Then after the fight, under the battle loot screen, we see that Mael's rapier actually levels up. I'm not sure what the polished chroma catalyst is about, but it's clear now that not only does the gear teach abilities, but weapons level up. Touching a little bit more on story stuff, seeing the characters interact really shows off their different personalities here. Mael's a cynic who wanted to see the world and is clearly falling in love with it. Gustav is a bit of a hothead here, shoot first type, and he's also very protective of Mael, his little sister, because he scolds her for, getting so close to one of the monsters created by the Paintress. And then Lune is clearly annoyed as she's a researcher and she wants to study things and understand what's going on, but they won't get to do that if Gustav just keeps shooting everything like a meathead. So I like that there's a lot of personality with these characters and it's kind of fitting together. And that's all of the new updates that we saw in this trailer. I am so stupidly hyped for this game. This is my #1 game next year. I feel the same I did about Visions of Mana with this game. Like, holy hell. I love the stylish and reactive combat. The game is gorgeous. The art direction is beyond anything I've ever seen. This game is just insane. Everybody in the RPG community is just guzzling this game up. Every morsel they drop is just a heavenly meal given to us by God herself. It's got massive expectations to deliver on. Admittedly, my hype has somehow gone up an additional 50% watching this, and it cannot come soon enough. Let me know your thoughts down below. And you know what? Share this. Share the love of Expedition 33. I would love if that would help us out so much. Or just hitting the like button. It's free. There's no effort. Just do it. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. And long live the Turtle Kingdom.